Today we paint another miniature via our double slop chop plus speed painting technique. Today we kinda combine the painting of the Space Marine and the painting of the Orc in this miniature. I also recommend that you watch my most recent video, which is painting with transparencies. In that video, I painted a quick watercolor painting of an orc to help explain glazes, washes, and speed paints. As usual, I'll share tips and my final thoughts at the latter part of this video. Today we're painting a Clay Cyanide miniature. We are not using grays and eventually white highlights for the underpainting today. We are using browns and tans, that's why I call this Warm Slop Chop Plus. Start with a dark brown color over the black primer. Remove paint on your dry brush, apply with light pressure and in multiple passes. I always say this, especially with my older speed paint videos. Dry brushing is less efficient than using your airbrush for the underpainting. However, for people who doesn't want to bring out or use their airbrush, or for people that doesn't have an airbrush, dry brushing is a very relaxing and enjoyable painting method. Although dry brushing is not as efficient as using the airbrush for the underpainting, dry brushing, the main advantage is that you don't paint over the deeper crevices. Especially if you apply very little pressure, you won't be able to paint the crevices and the deeper details of the miniature, creating more contrast. Also, when highlighting, I use a bigger dry brush so that I won't be painting the tighter areas with the lighter colors. Dry brushing and painting with washes or speed paints are the most relaxing way to paint miniatures. However, if you're going for a finer finish with your dry brushing, that could be time-consuming. As much as I want to tell you that I only spend roughly around 10 minutes in the dry brushing, no, I spent a good hour with this dry brushing. However, like I said, dry brushing is very enjoyable, relaxing, and practically focus-free. Hi, I'm Don. Welcome to my channel. This channel is supported by all these awesome brands. Also, special thanks to The Army Painter for making this video possible. After the dry brush underpainting, now we are ready for the first round of speed paints. We have an option to paint with bony matter or pallid bone. However, I chose pallid bone. Bony matter will give you darker shades. However, we don't need that since we're doing double slop chop. Also, bony matter will be too analogous with the skin color, which is the most dominant part of this miniature, so I decided with using pallid bone. Now we're using ochre clay. Ochre clay is very saturated. It's way more saturated than pallid bone. The difference between pallid bone and ochre clay is kinda subtle, but it will give us more color depth. We are painting the dead demons purples and magenta so that it has good separation between the groundwork. These complementary-ish colors will give more pop to our painting. Now we use age hide. This is a very nice orange skin color. This color is more analogous to our groundwork, thus it will kinda unify the painting of the base. I think it's fairly obvious that you really need to play with the colors of your painting with speed paints, especially if you don't plan to do highlights later. I was really surprised that Ashen Tone has really deep shadows. I like the effect, but I want to tone down the contrast later. This color surprisingly gave very nice contrast, but I want a more white fur. In real life painting, you should paint the skin first. However, this is a YouTube video, so to make you watch more of my video, I'm painting the skin last. Initially, I wanted to paint the boots and the gloves hardened leather, but I wanted to create more separation with the painting of the warm base. As you can see, I'm flip-flopping between warm and cool colors. This will give us better separation in between the different elements and areas of the model. Now we paint Nuclear Sunrise. I love this color. This is very saturated. It's even easier than painting actual oranges with regular paints. Now we're using Fire Drake again. This is an orange skin color and we're using it to paint the handle of the axe. Now we paint the skin. But like I said earlier, you should paint the skin first so that you have a good grasp of the overall painting of the miniature. While painting the skin, I'm thinking of making another video that is focused on skin painting with speed paints. Obviously, I'm not very happy with the result. Now, if you're getting value out of this video, do give this video a thumbs up and consider joining or not joining, subscribing to my channel. Now, once you're happy with your first round of slop chop, we then do the process over again. We dry brush with white paint, mostly from the top areas or the highlight areas, and then apply more speed paints. Now we are done with the first round of slop chop, and I think this is tabletop ready already. However, we want more contrast and more color depth, so we're going to do a second round of slop chop. Normally, I would dry brush white over the previous slop chop, but I wanted a warmer and darker finish for my highlighting later. If you've seen my previous double slop chop videos, I think it's kinda obvious that I'm using this method to get really dark base colors and more color depth with the shades and the midtones for my highlighting later. However, if you don't plan to paint a ton of highlights and spend too much time on painting a miniature, I recommend you paint with white. You dry brush with white paint and then thin down your speed paints with medium. Thin down speed paints with medium or water will not darken your midtones too much. However, the thin down speed paint will still glaze and smoothen the dry brushing. Also, if you don't plan to paint a ton of highlights later and you're just going for tabletop plus or tabletop quality painting, I recommend you do not use darker colors. Stay with the brighter and lighter speed paints. Now we paint with Runic Gray. This color is one of those colors that are perfect for the second round. The midtones of Runic Gray has pretty good saturation, and also it will give you more contrast. Now we paint with Holy White. I felt I needed to tone down the painting of the white fur so that it looks more like white fur. Now you could see Holy White perfectly toned down the contrast of the white fur. Now we're using Sand Golem to add more yellow highlights to the orange hair. Now if you paint this color without the dry brushing, you will just darken the painting of the hair. So the dry brushing here is very important. Speed paints and washes were formulated to create more contrast. Thus, without the dry brushing, your painting will become very, very dark as you paint transparent layers on top. Our skin is looking very dark, but this is perfect for my highlights later. A shameless plug ahead, our Kickstarter is fully funded, and thank you so much for all the backers. You'll have like 3 sets of tutorials from the different tiers. Of course, airbrushing tutorial in PDF and video format, layering and glazing or sketch and glaze in PDF and video format too, and of course, our double slop chop with speed paints, which is only in PDF format because we have a ton of double slop chop videos in video format here at YouTube already. Now, after watching this video, do check out our Kickstarter. The link is down below. Now, once you're happy with your double slop chop, you could proceed to the plus part. That's why I call it double slop chop plus, because the plus is the painting of the highlights. Now, this is definitely tabletop ready and ready for playing, especially if this was a 32mm miniature. However, since this is painting for Clay Cyanide, we have to paint more highlights to this miniature. If you watch my older videos, you'll know that I love skin painting and glazing. Also in my older videos, I call this part of the painting process flip-flop stage. This is the most time-consuming part of the painting of this miniature. I flip-flop from painting highlights, adding shades, glazing, and then really refine the painting. Basically at this stage, I highlight aggressively and tone it down if need be. Now, before my final thoughts, a huge thanks to all my patrons at Patreon, Hajime Model Studio, and of course, the Army Painter for making this video possible. Now we're done, or at least I call this done. I think it's obvious by now that I'm using the double slop chop method to create really quick midtones and shade colors. And like in this miniature, I used the double slop chop method to create a very dark base, which is very nice to make my highlighting more prominent. Oh, by the way, before I forgot, this is a 75mm Clay Cyanide miniature. Clay Cyanide plans to release some 75mm scale miniatures, and I will collaborate with them for the launch. The 75mm launch could be a Kickstarter or just your regular My Mini Factory launch. Now, like I said, I'm not very happy with the painting of the skin. I had to do a lot of glazes, glaze stippling, and layering on top to make the skin look fairly good, because the dry brushing underpainting kinda gave a very rough painting to the skin. My next video is the painting of the Death Guard Talisman. However, I think I'll create a really quick video on painting skin with speed paints after that video. No, it's not a glazing video. I have a ton of those videos already. It will still be painting with speed paints. Hopefully you saw in this video that the warmer slop chop, the warmer dry brush underpainting with browns and tans gave us a warmer finish at the end. I kinda like this warmer underpainting a ton more than the usual grays and whites. The warmer underpainting is perfect if the miniature you're painting has a ton of skin or a ton of browns and leathers. Oh, if you're curious, I spent roughly around 8 hours, maybe even 10 hours on the painting of the highlights. Now, if you're just aiming for a tabletop finish, you could do away without the highlighting. However, if you plan better painting, of course you must spend more hours on the painting of your miniature. Now, ignorant people will tell you that you won't improve as a painter if you continue to paint with speed paints or via slop chop. But that is very arguable because painting with transparencies is more complex than painting with opaque paints. That's it, Pansit. I hope you liked this video. Do like, comment, subscribe, and all that stuff. Until next video, guys. Bye! Now, if you like this video, do check out these other videos.